So just to warn everybody this afternoon that Christiana and I have never met before until 10 minutes ago. And we haven't spoken because we wanted this to be spontaneous, but we've been talking through the medium of Christiana's mother, who's been translating for us. So shall I introduce myself? So my name's Gary Blackburn. I grew up in London, and music is my life. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that this afternoon. And this is my new friend, Christiana.
Wow, perfect intro. Thanks everyone for coming. As Gary said, my name is Christiana. I work in artist management, and yeah, I'll also save some of the details. Like we said, it's the first time that we're connecting, and we wanted it to have that organic feel, so you guys can go through the motions with us as we learn about each other.
Yeah, actually, we're supposed to start with a minute of silence. I don't know if you guys are aware of this.
Meditation moment.
Okay. That felt a lot longer than a minute to me. I think the point of that was to try to set the scene for having a serious, a meaningful engagement. And ironically, Christiana and I swapped emails to prepare some topics to discuss. And one of the things we thought we would do was put a painting behind us rather than this text. And we chose Claude Monet, The Water Lilies, to set a calming mood. Unfortunately, the email I sent had such a low resolution, it didn't come out very well. Welcome to show business.
Yeah, first tip in artist management. Check the files before sending them.
Yeah, when I started, there was no such thing as a file or a JPEG. In fact, we didn't even have a backdrops then. So, shall we start by talking about the origins of how we got into this wonderful caper that we're in?
Perfect.
You want to go first?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay, where you go?
So I went to school for journalism and originally had found electronic music as a passion and just a place to be able to release and feel equal and kind of fitting in on the dance floor. And so as I was going to school at the time, I found out a quick way to be able to go to events for free as a broke college kid was to cover events and interview DJs. And so I did that over the first few years of my journey and quickly realized that I just loved the industry and all the chaos it brought. And so I decided to dig a bit more. And one day I was interviewing an artist from the UK, Josh Butler, and his manager at the time, I overheard him saying he needed an intern, and he didn't really know. He'd never hired someone in this capacity. And I said, well, I have no experience, but I would love to try it out. So I started with them when I was still in college and worked with them for about a year and a half. It was an agency called the Volume Group, which doesn't exist anymore, but all of these guys still working and you know, with different artists now. So at that time, I also realized I needed a bit more, and so I went on, and then I went and worked on the event side of things, production and kind of on site, and realized quickly I don't want to be in a club every night, and that's not for me. And so kind of swiftly shifted over to the management side and have been really kind of keeping my focus there for like the last 8 or 10 years or so now. And so that's kind of the quick journey. Obviously, a lot in between all of those moments, but kind of highlights as to how I got here today.
It's funny, isn't it, how a lot of the weekend is going, a lot of this week is going to be about how people progress in the industry. But getting started is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. And my beginning was, from about 12 or 13, I just loved music. And I plundered my dad's record collection, which kind of had Frank Sinatra and Isaac Hayes in it. It was a really weird mix of music. But then, of course, I discovered ska music, which was big at my school. We all used to dress in a certain way, and we fell in love with Jamaican ska. And ironically, I now manage an English band called Madness. I don't know if everybody, it's definitely outside of this genre, but I manage Madness, have done for 20 years. Britain's biggest ska band, I suppose. But it was the music that pulled me in, and I never imagined I would work in the industry. But ironically, when I took a year off after my schooling to try and get into university, I went to a job agency and they got me a job at a record company. That was very fluky that happened. So I did a year at a record company in 1975. So before any of you guys were born, probably. And the industry was very different to what it is today. But that's how I began my journey. Partly David Bowie's fault, I think, really.
Why do you say that?
Because seeing David Bowie on, anybody aware of the English pop music program, Top of the Pops? Every week I used to pick the new entries into the charts, and everybody would go along to BBC Television Centre and mime to their record. And when David Bowie appeared as Ziggy Stardust on Top of the Pops, it was a friendly alien landing. And I wanted to be in that club. Actually, later on, it led me to go and live in Berlin when the wall was still up, because when Bowie came back from his American odyssey, he arrived in Berlin to kick the coke habit, produce those great electronic albums, and he was recording in Hansa Studios, and I wanted to be close to that. So I ended up having a year in Berlin.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really good, yeah. It was fantastic. So I guess that's the
intro part, right? The easy part.
Yes, that's our origins, isn't it? I think what we want to do today, though, is kind of like talk about management and how our experiences clearly from different generations. My daughter is here, and she's the same age as you, I think, almost. And it's great to, I'm going to learn a lot today about your journey with your amazing artists that you represent.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's super interesting, because I always say this when I start conversations like this, but there's no school that you can go to for the industry. So we're all students, whether you've been working for 30 years or 3 years. And to your point before, it's always evolving. So I kind of see us all on the same starting point. I mean, your experiences are obviously far more vast than mine. But in terms of knowledge, because it's moving so fast, you might even know more than me, and vice versa in certain aspects. So I always find that a really interesting thing, because I think there's no way to say that, I don't know, there's an elite manager or agent or even promoter, because it is evolving so much. You have all your accolades and, you know, your roster and all these great things that you accomplish, but...
Shall we introduce our rosters?
Yeah.
Because although we're kind of billed as managing Black Coffee and Fatboy Slim, we represent more the artists than that.
Yeah, totally. So I personally am also representing Temba, Pablo Fierro, Sona, Mitagami, and just recently Dear Jade as well. So it's an exciting moment and kind of a diverse roster there. And yourself?
We, at Anglo, we manage about 20 artists. Most of them are in electronic music, but we diversify into a few bands as well. But working with Norman Cook, with Fatboy Slim, he's kind of my firstborn in terms of artist. Ironically, I knew Pete before I knew Norman, and we've managed Pete Pete Tong for the last 20 years. And I've mentioned Madness earlier, very different experience, 7 guys who are my age. But we also have some strong newer artists, such as Camel Fat and Hot Since 82. And Christiana and I have a touch point where we represent Adam 10, and Christiana's working with
Mitagami.
Mitagami. So those 2 lads are about to do something quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's
which
the
I'm going to
future
try and
right
find
now,
out about
I think.
today. Yeah.
Definitely. No, it's interesting as well. I think one of the points that really connected us is, even though we're at different points in our career, we've both worked with some of our clients for quite a long time. I mean, I didn't even know you had one client for 20 years, but I knew Fatboy Slim. It's 15, right, you said?
Beg your pardon?
It's been 15 years with Fatboy Slim as well? Or it's also 20?
Are you asking how long I've managed
Yeah.
Norman? Well, actually, it's more like 35 years.
35, wow. I've
I
been
know.
uninformed.
It's quite scary. And, but also,
This is amazing, though. I mean, you've been on every part of the journey with him then, from
almost every
all the
part.
ups and all the downs.
Almost every part. I think one of the points of talking about our having rosters is what is management, and we'll get into that, our definition of what we think management is, because I think it's a bespoke craft. It's also a dark art, in a way. But it's a relationship, essentially, I feel. It's a relationship. And of course, relationships, I have found, they're the hardest thing in the world to make endure and work. They have to be dynamic, they have to be flexible, and it has to be full of love, basically. You translate that into a business relationship, that's quite unusual. And that's the lovely thing about this business. I feel it's a privilege. It's a real privilege to be here today. There's a lot of people in this room who are so important to me and have helped me achieve my success with my artists. And I think it's a community. That's a major part of electronic music. It starts on the dance floor, and it kind of exists in our world as well, I find. I love that. It makes getting up every day, coming to work, an absolute joy. It is fraught with challenges and difficulties, which we'll also get into. One of the topics is our bad days, things we find difficult. Yeah, that's basically where we're at.
Yeah, and I think I agree with all of those points fully. I also feel like every artist is so unique, and what you need to offer to them, it's understanding what mask to be wearing, I always say. You know, some artists, they need you to be the therapist too, and I joke, sometimes the wife, sometimes the sister, sometimes anything in between.
Do you think there is a kind of a parental element to which is
Of course.
quite difficult when it's like Norman sometimes refers to me as his dad. And I'm only a year older than him, or 2 years older than him. And at first I took it as a bit of an insult, but then I realized it was a compliment.
Think of the pressure I have. He's got 20 years on me, and I'm calling him my son.
Yeah. But it is that kind of care, like you're caring for somebody.
Yeah, with everything. Like
yeah.
you said, it has to come from the heart. I think at the end of the day, we all, we're doing this because we need to make a living, but first and foremost, it needs to be a passion for you. You need to wake up and do it, from your heart, like you said, because there are difficult moments and there's missed holidays and hard days just in general. So being able to understand what the important moments are and
I find that
it's everything.
I find all my artists kind of want different things as well. I mean, Pete doesn't need a dad. He's so more knowledgeable than I am about music. But I think the role, probably the service, apart from all the kind of structural stuff, the organizational stuff, it's for an artist to have somebody they can trust, and for an artist to have somebody in their circle who can be close enough to criticize or to point out another view on something. Because the more successful you become, the more it's very easy to become a complete douchebag. And you see artists, that happens. Success and fame can really distort people's perception of. It can take them beyond thinking they get to think they're special, which of course they have special talents, but they start to feel they're special, and it can be very corrupting on the way they behave with people. And that often happens. And when that's combined with all the other potions and liquids that flow around what we do, it can really distort things. So it's nice, I think it's nice for those guys to have somebody to bring them, to anchor them a bit, which is kind of what parenting is
giving them a bit of stability.
Up to a point,
I
think. Yeah.
No, it's a super important factor. And I think also, going back to the trust thing, every good management relationship I've had with an artist, if it's someone that I can talk about more personal things with and just really be yourself as well, like, you being able to connect with them on a deeper level, you can accomplish so much more than if it's kind of surface level, you're walking on eggshells, what to say, how to say it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, some artists do, but you're not here to be a yes man. So if they want that, that's one thing. But most artists, they need feedback. They need something to drive and curate where they're trying to take things.
I think the only yes man component of the role is really when somebody's broken or nervous or not sure, you can help with the confidence. You can help with the like they're on a tightrope, these guys. They're up on the wire, and that's where it all happens up there. So they've got to have the confidence to get up there, but not be so overconfident they go over the other side. So it's kind of a balance. I found it's a balancing act.
Definitely.
And it's never a moment where it's always in play. It's always moving one side or the other. So it requires a lot of focus and attention in the relationship. Do you travel a lot with your artists?
Yeah, I pick and choose my battles. I'll have moments where I travel a lot, and I personally know it's not good for me and my work. I'm a creature of habit, so I like to wake up early, do my thing, be on emails, take calls, have a very set schedule. But, you have a flight delayed, or the visa wasn't approved in time, the show's till 4 a.m, and you have a meeting at 9. So I try my best to, find the right balance. So be there for the important moments, but not always be around.
How long did it take you to learn that?
Too long.
Took me about 10 years to learn
Even
that.
if I'm being honest now, a lot of people still laugh at me, but this is going to be our 7th summer at High with Black Coffee, and I still go every Saturday when I'm here.
You must be exhausted. That's why it's quite good to be young in this game.
But it's also part of that love. And also, I don't know about you, but I'm a control freak. So it's like, even if I know the show is going to sell out and it's going to be a smash and everything's smooth, I'll still call every week, hey, how are sales? How are things looking? Is there
Yeah.
anything out of place? I mean, that's what we do essentially. But
I love data and statistics, especially sold out shows.
the only data that matters.
I really, really missed that during COVID. That was a very difficult time. I find that going on the road with acts is a great way of hanging. The best conversations are always had on journeys, I think.
Yeah, you're leaving the club in the car at 6 a.m. on the way to the airport.
Yeah, when
I
you're
feel like
traveling,
everyone's very casual then and loose.
yeah, you really get into a comfortable relationship, and you can talk about lots of stuff when you're flying all around the world.
And you can read the room a bit too, like you can tell the energy that the artist has rather than sometimes on WhatsApp. I find it, we're always available now, so our artists as well, and sometimes they have a heavy week. It's finding the right moment to talk to them or what ticks them off if maybe they're touring really heavy, like the little things like that are, I don't know, not hard to navigate, but everyone's a little bit different.
That whole sort of way of communicating now is that kind of crept up on me, but it does. I mean, I know everyone's dealing with this while we're here, the mental health of working, but I think I've always found any problems are outweighed by the good stuff that happens. So we sort of covered about the different relationships we have with artists, but there are universal elements to it, I think, where you talked about therapy, which I think we kind of covered. But there's all the other kind of, I mean, most people know the regular stuff about the finance, the relationships with record companies, agents, publishing companies, promoters. It's a big ecosystem that we operate in, and I heard, Christiana, that you used to play football.
Yes. Where's this going?
Because I think football, for me, is a great metaphor for how to work as a team.
No, definitely. I always say this as well because I played at a pretty high level in college, and even though I felt like that moment, I took nothing out of it. In retrospect, I learned so much to not only work as a team, but also to be a leader as well, to be kind of grounded. I think it's really important in this industry, especially like you can get really lost in the sauce in so many different ways. So keeping all of those things that I learned on the field and taking it and applying it to everyday life.
Do you guys want to know how Christiana started with black coffee? Yeah. Can you give us that?
Yeah,
story?
for sure.
The simple version.
Yeah, exactly. That could be a 45-minute
It
combo on its own.
It could get complex, yeah.
So I previously worked for his old manager, which at the time I had been looking for the next challenge in my career. And so the Martinez brothers are good friends of mine from New York, and I had asked them, and their old manager, Shauna, I asked for an interview, and she's like, look, I don't really have the funds to do this, but my friend is hiring, go do an interview with him. He manages Black Coffee. And at the time, of course I knew him, but wasn't super familiar. So met, got the job, and worked with his old manager for about 4 years. And then at the end of COVID, Black Coffee and I started an agency together, which was a really exciting moment because it was something that wasn't super, I wasn't prepared for it. But in retrospect, I don't think you're ever prepared to start a company or to take on a big artist on your own or any of the things that, I mean, looking back, I wouldn't have guessed this is where I'd be right now.
Would it be too controversial to ask where the old manager is now?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Have you've heard about the shallow grave theory? We used to have this office in a palace in Fulham, and there was a big garden out the back, and I used to joke about the bodies that I'd buried in the garden in shallow graves, because there is that side, where management. One of the things about management is it's often a contractually weak relationship. In fact, I think it always is a weak relationship. But it's often the most important one that an artist will have. And it's unusual, I think, for that relationship to endure. And one of the things I'm pleased about with Anglo is that some artists do leave us. And if you really want to get into it, we can talk about some of those. It'll be painful for me, but we can talk about that. But most of the relationships have been very long, and they have changed. They have to be allowed to change and progress. When I first started managing Norman, I actually began as his radio plugger. I had a company that did radio promotion in the UK, which is why I can reference Top of the Pops and Radio 1 and how I spent a lot of time with Pete. And Norman was in a band called the House Martins. And when the band dissolved, at the peak of their success, they did the kind of the James Dean thing, you know, die young and live forever. And Norman kind of went back to his hobby of DJing. And I, as a friend, because he was in a band that had split up, he did a show in Brighton, a club called The Event, which holds 1,500 people. It was a decent number of people. And I went down to see him, and Norman was not a DJ then. He was playing bass with this kind of collaborative enterprise of 23 musicians. He had a 13-piece backing band from Zimbabwe that he'd paid to bring over. He had rappers, breakdancers, graffiti artists, 23 people on stage. In the audience, there were 15 people there, and me. So I said to Norman, this is what we'll do. We'll buy everybody a drink in the audience and tell them to have a good time. And that was kind of where we began to talk about, and what Norman was doing was absolutely brilliant. It was kind of a live version of what Fatboy Slim became with the use of samples and cut and paste and, you know, making these type of records. And yeah, I think that was the Norman might have a different origin story, but I think that's how it began.
What do you think the secret is after all these years of you guys sticking together and it's still working?
Well, I think we have changed. We had massive success in the early 90s when Fatboy Slim broke across the world. And you know, I was in the office and I was getting the sales figures. We were signed to a tiny independent label in Brighton called Skin. We were getting sales figures of like 35,000 albums a day. So it was going fast. And then America came into play with Astralworks. And we did 1 million albums in America. And the music, it was very music-driven. And it was just capturing that moment. And then it was like riding a tiger. It was wild. And we really were making it up as we went along. And that's what's nice about being in the position I'm in now, because I need to explain a little bit about how Anglo is, how it works. There's 18 of us in the company. So it's still a family-sized business. And all this kind of values that I've been talking about that we have in the relationship with our artist is also applied to the team that work at the office. So everybody's handpicked for their charm, their intelligence, their love of music, and their wit. And they're really lovely to work with, and we have fantastic people. So one of the reasons I think we've worked for a long time with our artists is because we're able to provide lots of support across whatever they need, really, when they need it. And I love a challenge. You know, Norman rang me up once saying he needed a vicar to consult on a personal matter, and fortunately a very good friend of mine was a vicar, so I was able to come up with that quite quickly.
You learn a lot, I think, in management about things you never thought you would. Like, I know way more about geography and immigration and everything in between. Divorces,
Oh, look, let's talk about
child
that.
support, everything that comes with a family.
Some of it's not so interesting, is it? I mean, trying to get an American visa at the moment is so complicated.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the price as well. They don't make it easy for anyone to want to tour and become an emerging artist.
I don't think we'll go down that road today. Talking about that. So one of the things we thought we might describe as an average day. You want to have a go at that?
What is average? Yeah.
There's no such thing. That's one of the lovely. I mean, I suppose you guys all feel the same way. You know, this is what's great about our business. Every day is very different, isn't it?
That's what I love the most about it, because you wake up and you don't know what to expect. I mean, of course, sometimes you have days that you wish you didn't wake up, but overall, it's something new and exciting. And even if it's something negative, like you said, it's about problem solving. And for me, that keeps me on my toes. It excites me. It makes me want to keep going. I kind of like a little drama in the day, you know? If everything's going right, that's not right.
When everything's going right, always look up. Because there's usually a piano hanging from a crane that's about to drop just behind you. And so, you ever seen that in a film? It's brilliant. I'm always glad to wake up every day. Always glad. It's really important. And one of the things of kind of having gone around the block a few times is that there's very few, well, I'm going to need to touch some wood now, but there's very few things that happen that you don't know how to deal with when you've been around for a long time. As long as it's not life-threatening, and we have had some of those. With Daily, with Hot Since 82, we had a moment with a show that Gugu was promoting in Brazil, where Daily was, we don't know if it was a kidnap or a robbery, but it was and we weren't with him. Fortunately, the guy driving him knew what to do. Wow. Yeah, it was like one of those films, you know, where it's like the car in front slams its brakes on. This is 4 o'clock in the morning in a tunnel coming out of Rio. That one, you know, and the car had to brake, and these 2 motorbikes came up behind with guys with pistols, and the driver kind of did a mad thing. He put it in reverse and hammered it back out of the tunnel. But he got him out of there. But that could have, that is horrible. For Daily, unbelievable, but for all of us as well, very frightening. Because it makes you realize that you really have to look after these guys. You know, you're sending them out. Weirdly, we had Camel Fat doing the same club 2 weeks later, and they practically went in an armored car. We sort of overdid it. You know, we kind of overreacted to it.
Better safe than sorry.
That's what we thought.
Yeah.
You know, really scary. The guy we got in to advise us was an ex-soldier, SAS guy, absolutely brilliant. But the degree you can take that to, he told us, like, before you check in a hotel, you get the hotel to close all the curtains so that the spotters outside can't tell which floor your artist is checking into because they're watching. I mean, it's scary.
It reminds you how fragile life is, too. I had this conversation with Black Coffee a few weeks ago. I mean, not to get into it even with him, but he had 2 near-death experiences in his lifetime now, and one more recently with a plane accident with crazy turbulence, and he had a life-saving surgery. But it's moments like these and going in and celebrating the small wins, because you never know what tomorrow can bring. You know, you could be at the top of your game touring, releasing music. Everything could be perfect, but something like a kidnapping or a plane crash or anything in between could happen. And I mean, that's life in general, but especially with the crazy lives we live, like to be doing 100 and something shows a year, flying.
How many shows is Black Coffee doing this year?
This year, I don't know the count now, but he usually does around 120.
Yeah. I mean, Norman is still doing 100 shows a year.
It's amazing.
And it's all over the planet. And he absolutely loves it.
Exactly. You have to pull them away, right? He's like, oh, I'm home again? Well,
we do.
This schedule is much different than on the road. As if, like, not sleeping is easier than bringing the kids to school or whatever it comes with being home.
I think you do have to say, are you sure you're happy doing this? You know, is it right? are you enjoying it? And we ask that question regularly because it's you can get on the hamster wheel. I mean, obviously, we all want to be at that point where it is going that well. But once you arrive in that space, it does present challenges.
And everyone wants something different. Like, I have an artist now who he wants to take a step back. He's like, touring's not satisfying me anymore. I love being in the studio. I love creating, and I don't feel creative because I'm touring so much. So to know what that switch is as well, and just be mindful of what actually kind of fuels your fire and what's holding you back.
Christiana, what's the last row you had with an artist?
As far as what?
Have you had an argument recently?
Recently.
You can take the fifth on it if you want.
No, you know what? To be fair, I'm a very calm person. So with my artists, I feel like...
I didn't ask if you lost your temper with them.
No, but even in terms of like arguments, you know,
a disagreement. What do you disagree about?
There's one artist that I work with that is so creatively genius, but he can become so stubborn in his ways. And I appreciate and respect that sometimes, but sometimes it's like, allow me to do my job, because you're getting frustrated because you're not seeing results on something, you know, X, Y, and Z. But if I can immediately tell you, well, you're not seeing these results because we didn't deliver here, here, and there, but I offered, like, you know, we're trying to find solutions. So I always say, like, my biggest arguments probably let me do my job more in those instances. And that's just one artist that works very particular like that, I would say.
That kind of depends on them accepting your definition of your job, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what you were saying too, like before, do you want a yes man or do you want someone who's going to tell you the truth? And I always say this too, starting new management relationships, like, I'll never sell an artist on a dream. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I'll guarantee you're going to play Coachella and you're going to be, you know, in the Billboard charts and this and that. No one can promise anything in this business. So I can guarantee you I'll give you 200% effort, but I can't guarantee results that we have to work on as a unit.
Do you find you have to manage their expectations?
Some artists, yeah. It depends, you know. Each artist is a little bit different. I feel like one of my artists is just a dreamer. Like, he has a crazy idea and he won't give up until he has that done, or at least a plan to get there. And then, I mean, there's other artists. It depends too, I think, coming from a level of motivation. Because I always say, like, management, and you kind of alluded to it, it is a relationship, and it has to be 50%, 50-50. So if I'm giving and you're only taking and not giving, then we're not going to grow. Like, the artist needs to want to put in the work as well. They can't just sit there and wait for you to spoon feed them.
I've sort of stopped having arguments with my artists. It doesn't get me anywhere at all. But I do like to let them know what I think, and just say, let me just tell you what I think about this, and then you decide how you want to process that. The area where I often fall down is when I get involved in the creativity, to the point where Norman, if I suggest something, he does the complete opposite. It's the principle of inverse management, A&R, and seems to work okay with him. That's the area that I feel least qualified to help, but I can't help myself saying, I think that's too long, or, you know, you could change that, or this is the wrong time to be doing that. And as long as it's a healthy discussion, I think it's fine.
And learning cues too, like we were saying before, you know, if you're coming off a stage, some artists, that's when the adrenaline's pumping. They want to discuss creative. Some are like, don't talk to me, the car ride's silent. So yeah, figuring out the dynamics.
I think a revelation for me was realizing that I wasn't actually the boss in the relationship. And because if you call yourself a manager, that kind of is a boss, isn't it? And I kind of lived that delusion for a long time. But it is not true. You kind of have to let them own their... All the best artists I work with, they know exactly where they're going.
Agree.
They have a version of it in their heads. And usually that is about the performance and the music they make. They know exactly what they want. They might be wrong, but they know exactly what they want.
That's conviction.
And I think you have to trust that and support that, but have a voice that, because I'm sure they have moments where they lack confidence, like we all do.
Of course.
Yeah. New artists. How do you? I mean, it might be relevant in this week because there's a lot of new artists hovering around. And what criteria do you apply? Are you actively looking for new artists?
I'm very selective because I have a very small team. So for me, it's really important that there's the right time allocated to every artist and no one feels like someone's bigger than them or more important than them. So for me, time is really important in that aspect. And also just really feeling inspired by an artist because I think, you get a lot of emails and you meet a lot of people, but I feel like instantly if you click with someone and if you believe in their vision. And for me, I know not every manager is the same and would love to hear your thoughts too, but I know some managers, like, they don't need to love the music, like, of a specific artist or maybe even the genre. But for me, I don't know, to be able to, like, give it my all, I want to really believe in it and everything that it encompasses, not just, oh, well, techno is really hot right now. I don't like it, but I'll manage a techno artist because, like, that's just, for me, not okay. Or not my style of working, rather.
It's worth coming back to that because I think in the business, you can easily forget you're working in music. So within our organization, we're listening to music all the time. It's really important. Everybody listens to music every day from the artists that we represent, but also the wider scene to understand what's going on. Not to keep pace with trends, but just to understand that's what we're all in it for, really. When we start working with new artists, there's basically two boxes to tick. Are you a nice person? Do you make great records? If you tick both those boxes, it's easy. And that's just an opinion, whether the music is great. But if it's our opinion...
I always say this, music is subjective.
Completely. And who knows where the next thing is coming from. And we encourage the artists we work with to be adventurous and to be brave and to do different things. There's no point. There's so much quite good music out there at the moment. In fact, most of it is quite good. Yeah. But where's that going?
No, it's true. I always say as well when I target these conversations to find an artist that, I mean, this is going to sound bad, but it's not just that they're a great DJ or just a great producer. I mean, beyond being a good person, but also do they have interest maybe in fashion or in other pillars that tie into the music world? That, there can be more longevity in these conversations, whether it's brands deals or syncs or, all the kind of creative things along the way, because I think we'd be silly to say right now, like the modern artist, you kind of have to be the modern day Renaissance man. You can't just make a great record and be successful. I mean, there's, of course, cases of this, but I think there are so many different things that weighs on an artist's back now. So someone that has, I don't know, just a bit of diversity in what their passions are and what they might want to achieve just outside of, playing for a big crowd or winning a Grammy or whatever these really important key pillars are in music.
I have to be honest. I think I'm trying to figure that out every day.
Yeah.
One of the lovely things about working in a big team, in my team, which is very diverse, a lot of youngsters, and some very good, wise, older people. Katie, who's kind of queen bee in our company, she's revolutionized what we do. It's been it's so dynamic at the moment. It's like being on a fast train where the scenery is flashing by. I find that's the bit I find hard, is to stay across everything because it's not intuitive to me. Yeah. So I have to kind of relearn it all. But that's why I surround myself with young people who it is intuitive to, and I can learn from them. It's funny how you can learn from everybody. Everybody has something that you don't know that they can share. So
I love that you say this too, because when I first started off, and maybe it was just the care I was under, but one of my first bosses was like, don't ask for advice from other managers, like, just get it done. You're gonna look stupid if you ask the wrong thing or if you ask it the wrong way. And I'm the same way. I encourage, ask questions. Don't ask the same question twice, but ask questions and learn. And
really important. It's really important. It's like when you're at school, if you didn't put your hand up and ask a question, you'd never get the answer. So we always encourage that. I mean, the people that annoy me most in the company are the people that ask the most questions, but that's my problem. I get annoyed. They should be asking. It's the best way to learn. The other good way of learning is making mistakes. Just don't make them fatal, and like you say, don't repeat them. Yeah, don't make mistakes twice. I think we're getting a cue to wrap up. So I think this is the first of many conversations between you and I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How do we do, guys? Was it normal?